Hello everyone, welcome to another session of Ideas. Many of us have experienced crisis in our life. A personal crisis affects only a limited number of people. But at times, a crisis can affect an entire community, a state, a nation, or even an entire world. COVID-19 was one such global crisis. It was also a healthcare crisis. In today's video, we are going to talk about healthcare crisis. But before that, let's try to define crisis. So, crisis is a critical situation which demands urgent attention. Why? Because it poses significant threat to people's well-being, their social stability, economic health, and even environmental sustainability. So we can safely say crisis is a situation which requires immediate action, and if it's not handled well, it can lead to long-term consequences. Now let's take a look at the types of crisis. Crisis can be economic, it can be environmental, humanitarian, and healthcare. Let's try to understand these crises in detail. Economic crisis, recession, rising inflation, loss of job, and disruption in supply chain are few cases of economic crisis. One good example can be 2008 global financial crisis, which was caused by the collapse of large financial institutions. Environmental crisis, global warming, loss of biodiversity, natural resources, uncontrolled carbon emission, and even overpopulation is a case of environmental crisis. One example can be 2010 oil spill in Gulf of Mexico, which is one of the largest environmental crises in the history of world. Humanitarian crisis. Natural disasters, civil war, armed conflict, displacement of people are few cases of humanitarian crisis. One example is Syrian civil war, which has caused death of millions of people, refugees, and displacement of people. Healthcare crisis, pandemic, epidemic, healthcare system failure, antibiotic resistance, chronic health conditions are few cases of healthcare crisis. COVID-19 is one example of healthcare crisis which overwhelmed the entire healthcare system and caused death of millions of people. Let's dig deeper and try to understand healthcare crisis better. A healthcare crisis occurs when healthcare systems are overwhelmed and not able to meet the needs of the population. And why it happened? It happened when there is a widespread illness, pandemic, or inadequate healthcare infrastructure. It is also often seen that economic, environmental, and humanitarian crisis can be the cause of healthcare crisis. How? We will find out. So, an economic crisis deepens social inequality, which results in decline in living standard, also decrease in disposable income and loss in purchasing power. On an individual level, it affects people's capacity to seek accessible, affordable, and high quality healthcare. So during economic crisis, the healthcare industry's capacity to provide quality healthcare to people is severely impacted. Environmental crisis. World Health Organization or WHO estimates that between 2030 and 50, 250,000 people will die annually because of climate change. So public health is threatened by climate change. So we can safely say an environmental crisis is actually a health crisis also. A humanitarian crisis occurs when there is a political, man-made or natural event which threatens a community's safety, healthcare, well-being, or even exhausts the available resources. Conflict or disaster, which are nothing but humanitarian crisis, disrupt the healthcare, and situations such as infectious diseases, non-communicable diseases, traumatic injury, and mental health problems arise as a result. So access to quality healthcare, medical care or medication is very, very limited and is not available for all during humanitarian crisis. So we learned that how a humanitarian crisis or economic crisis can lead to healthcare crisis. Now, can you think of an event of past when India went through a massive economic, environmental and humanitarian crisis which led to a healthcare crisis? Well, there are many, but one such example is partition of India. When India got partitioned, people had to leave their home and migrate to a foreign land, which created a situation of refugees. So these refugees lived in refugee camps, and the living condition of those refugees camp was pathetic, very unhygienic, which led to spread of many infectious diseases. People had to lose their job, they have to leave their home, they have to leave their assets, so they didn't have money. There was a decline in purchasing power that led to economic crisis. So how a political situation led to an economic crisis, humanitarian crisis, and ultimately it led to a healthcare crisis. Now is the time for your task. Create a mind map to critically analyze and form connections between the economic, environmental, and humanitarian issues and their implication on healthcare. So that is all for today. I will see you very soon in the next video. Till then, take care. Happy learning.